You're allowed diplomatic immunity.
So technology prohibits me. No, I wanted to say that Swapan talked about the need for devolution to the states and not so much centralization as exists today. But at another level, I think what I'd like to add is you also need devolution from the states to the local bodies and the panchayats, because the states are the biggest block in devolution to the local level, and that's where actually people feel directly engaged in democracy and in making the choices of how to spend, how to raise resources, what will it do to our environment. And there we don't have any devolution because the states are opposed to it, since they feel it will be a diminution of their power.
I mean, by and large, I agree with you, but I think there's also a distrust which has come in of the belief what was caricatured as from PM to DM. You know, that was a caricature. But the belief that the center will subvert the state governments by reaching out to the panchayats directly, and therefore, in a sense, indirectly promote a form of centralization, once again, is a real one. And I think it's going to take time. But, you know, like all things, you know, at various stages. But I think gradually we must, I think the process of encouraging the states to devolve more power. And I think this is where, when you get politicians coming up at the panchayat level, and as panchayat elections get more bitterly fought, the struggle for resources will be all that greater. And particularly now, it's very important is to get some municipal order. I mean, one of the biggest problems which we face in India is municipal government in the sort of B, C, and D class towns. It's non-existent. Their resource raising capacities are zero because they haven't been streamlined. People haven't worked on those things.
Jay, just come, this gentleman, then you. Gentleman here.
Is there a connect between, say, regression and democracy? I would not call it regression. I would call it status quoism, or recently people call it policy paralysis and all that. My question is that one of the major reasons probably which has not been discussed is overemphasis on populism and political opportunism, which has not allowed our leaders, who are also responsible, intelligent, bright, can lead us to take tough decisions at times which will not get them votes for them or the party. I think this is the main reason for this status quoism or regression.
I mean, you just have to agree because it's a hypothesis. Jay.
Having been in the political system, there's a question I ask everybody, and nobody's given me an answer yet. Quraishi Sahab, you reminded me again. You mentioned the link between politicians and bureaucrats. Why is it everybody leaves the private sector out? Because you can easily get 1 crore in cash, but you will not get 1 lakh in check, no matter how much you beg for it. And this is a problem honest politicians have. And where is the taxation problem? Where is the political vendetta problem? All the things that are being made as excuses for actually seeing that legitimate check payments for politicians in elections can happen.
I was talking about the nexus between bureaucracy and politicians very simply, that unless they work together, there cannot be corruption. It's a reality. Lots of leaders have told us that minimum it costs 5 crores to 10 crores. Where does the money come from? That's why they ask the bureaucracy to pay them and also give them license to pocket what they can in the process. And nobody is interested in catching the thieves. So, which is why we feel that after all, there is a wisdom in the law of putting a ceiling on election expenditure. And we have to find our ways. We have tried our best, the fact that we see the money, but they come up with new modus operandi. For instance, earlier the money used to go on the seat of the car in a briefcase. Then it went to the boot. Then it went to the door of the car. Then we found DG police taking the money out of the politician, because who will stop his car? We found ministers taking the money in their aeroplanes and helicopters.
But sir, it wouldn't happen if there were check payments. That's what I'm saying.
You know, then we also came across a situation when the money was being taken in funeral vans and ambulances. We had the dilemma that if we stop an ambulance and if the patient dies, the Supreme Court or the court will haul us up. So we said, don't stop the ambulance. Let the ambulance go to the destination, to the hospital. When the patient is taken out, then see the ambulance can catch the money. So no, they're developing a modus operandi, but which is the reason if they spend a lot of money, they have to recover, and that is where the corruption begins.
No, I'll just make a small point in this case. You know, one thing, there are certain facts which should come out. In my understanding, there are about between 100 and 125 entities, which I include individuals, who pay contributions of 1 crore and above to political parties. This is based on various, my own sort of understanding and information gauge. Secondly, there are tax benefits available to both individuals and corporates to pay by check. Why is it that a minusculity only does so? And the reason for it is the basic fear of political retribution. This is what all of them say, that we would love to pay you by check, we would love to put it in our books, but assuming the other side comes to power, are we not going to get harassed? And I don't think anybody has a, you know, the manner in which some of the investigative agencies have been used gives people no reason to be optimistic that a certain level playing field will exist.
If I may also comment on this, you know, we discussed this issue with the business and industry, because after all, they are a very important stakeholder. What is it that they want? The case of transparency versus accountability and confidentiality. They said same thing as Swapan is saying, that if we pay, in any case, they have to pay to all parties. But then if they pay more to one and they pay less to the other, then they have a permanent enemy there. So their confidentiality requirement was that cash is a better alternative, because we don't want to create enemies. But they came up with an alternative solution. They said if you create a fund where we contribute and give it to, say, the election commission can run that fund, and from there the parties can be funded. So funding parties and funding elections are two different issues we need to examine.
No, but I think, I mean, to directly answer Jay's question, there is an enormous nexus between the corporate world and politicians. I mean, it's no rocket science. And I think corporate India is as criminal as, you know, I mean, corporate India would love to blame the politician and the bureaucrat, but the criminality begins there because they believe, and they often do, tweak the system with money power. The solutions have been found, and I'll list one or two. Number one, I know of 4 companies, and not all of them are my clients. The Tatas, Mahindra, Bajaj, and in the good old days, I remember ITC Gujarat Ambuja. I don't know about Airtel. I mean, they must be doing it, but I don't know. So they've created a form of disbursement which is linked to performance, almost like proportional representation. How much we paid you last time? How much did we contribute? And they do it across national parties. So they won't fund a regional party. They'll fund national party, or they'll contribute. Karuna mentioned the US example. The US example actually is the best functioning example. Apart from website declarations, even corporations are limited in terms of how much they can contribute. You are limited in terms of how much the grand old party or the Democrats can actually raise through dinners. Those dinners then have to be hosted by other people. I mean, Meera would know that better. But there is no question that today, of 100% funding, 90% is in cash, 10% is by check. But again, we're looking at the problem. The solution is, if these companies were or are doing the right thing, why on earth should they be worried about political retribution? It's not political retribution alone. It's political maneuverability that they seek. They want to put eggs in many baskets. So it's not by exclusion, it's by inclusion. And if you stop that, then you begin to curb this utter waste of money and the criminality therein. So, I mean, to my mind, that's how it's got to be done.
Yeah, but is the way out, what's the way out of this?
The
way out is very simple.
He suggested a fund.
No, also, that if you reduce the discretionary power of government, then the need for quid pro quo in contributions is going to be less.
But it'll never happen.
No, it has happened in various states.
Gujarat.
Where there is greater transparency as far as competitive bidding, for example, is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I know in Bengal, no one pays any money because there's none left. Because business is so brilliantly being managed by MD.
Elections in Bihar are invariably subsidized from other states. I mean, that's a fact.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. There's a lady there, and then there's a gentleman right at the back in a colorful shirt. But obviously, we are from Calcutta, so we will yield to the woman.
Thank you. My question is with respect to Mr. Dasgupta's comment.
Dr. Dasgupta.
Dr. Dasgupta's comment. I stand corrected. That wealth...
And he's not like Dr. Rana Kapoor, who's got an honorary degree.
The comment was that wealth generated from the resources of a particular state should be plowed back for the development of that particular state. So my question is, what is the contribution of the people to such kind of natural resources which the state is blessed with? And if we do adopt and advocate such a policy, how will it help nationalism?
Well, I mean, this is the perennial debate about whether you're reconciled to uneven development or whether you want a redistributive center. I mean, this is really, it's at the heart of the problem.
So, but
should Jharkhand, just give you an example, Jharkhand has some of the most, it's the richest in terms of mineral wealth. But look at its plight. Does Jharkhand feature on the top of the economic league? No. Some of it is due to malgovernance. Some of it is due to corruption. But a lot of it is due to governmental policies whereby the extraction of mineral wealth from Jharkhand is actually utilized elsewhere. The Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh told me that if, for example, royalties were increased and mining in certain mica and other things were allowed, then there would be zero taxation in any other sphere in that state. Now, these are questions we've got to make an intelligent choice. But my fear is that if we don't, for example, if we don't give greater share of the oil royalties of Assam to Assam, we are going to produce a form of virulent regionalism which will again affect nationalism. So there has to be a greater sense of balance. I think we've erred too much in favor of centralization. It's time to bend the stick in the other direction.
Yes, please.
thank you.
I want to ask this to